struggling and suffering, and he is here with us to share his wisdom. I love what you said to me yesterday. You said that being out and about is advocacy. It's activism. And so we are going to learn so much from Yuval, and he will become your mishpacha just like he's become mine. And I also want to thank the Israeli Consulate and Jewish Federation of Greater Atlanta for bringing you here with us tonight. Yuval is an Emmy Award actor, host, director, and filmmaker who has won over 100 international film festival awards. His creative mantra is to entertain, uplift, and inspire. He shapes his approach with storytelling and boldness, vulnerability, and authenticity in representing characters and narratives. As a filmmaker, Yuval directs, writes, and produces feature-length short films, documentaries, web series, as well as digital and episodic TV content. And I cannot wait to see your most recent documentary, full-length feature. It's titled Wonderfully Made, LGBTQ+R for Religion, and is screening at international film festivals and community impact screenings, so we're gonna have to have another one. In addition to your work and to his work in entertainment media, Yuval is a very passionate activist and advocate, and works tirelessly for so many queer nonprofits, including GLAAD and the National LGBTQ Task Force. Advocacy for him is in his blood, and he does it for the marginalized and the underrepresented as a driving force, along with the focus on Jewish and LGBTQ and humanitarian and arts, and he's a wonderful human being. Give it up for Yuval David.
So many people who spoke before me here today, even before our event officially began, were speaking about grieving. Even in my conversations with the Sojourn staff and with the Atlanta Israel Coalition, we were talking about grieving. And in each one of our conversations, such as with Rebecca and Mackenzie, they asked if I took a breath. And there were times that I didn't actually know if I took a breath, because in my trauma, I turned to action. It is what I know how to do. When I face trauma, I turn to action. When I notice other people's trauma, I turn to action. It is what I know how to do. It is how I was raised as a Jew. I'm the grandchild of Holocaust survivors and heroes of the war, who soon after surviving, losing the vast majority of their friends, their family, everything they had, made it to the promised land, made it to this land where they had to rebuild from the ashes. I knew, as the grandchild of my grandparents, what an honor it was for me to have life, and that my life isn't my own. My life is of my people. My life is of my family. And I knew at a young age that it is my responsibility to be a Jewish activist, because that is what being a Jew is. To be a Jew, to be part of Judaism is an ism. It is a movement. To be Jewish is to be part of a religion, part of a peoplehood, part of a nationality, part of an ethnicity, part of a philosophy. People refer to us as an ethno-religion. 23andMe and Ancestry.com, when people do their genetics studies and it comes back with whatever their percentages are, it'll say, oh, you're this percentage Northern European, Eastern European, Western African, Far Eastern, Southeast, East Asian, but it'll also say you're this percentage Jewish. And that's something that really struck me and brought home what it means to have our Jewish genetics, what it means to be born Jewish, and what it means to be part of our Jewish people who ingrained in our peoplehood, in our ethnicity, in our religion, is liberalism, is open-mindedness, is answering a question with a question, is including anybody who wishes to join our people and become part of our people and share their genetics with us. It's an amazing thing of how we all can belong together. And inspired by my LGBTQ identity, my LGBTQ activism, when we talk about LGBTQIA+, we're adding the plus to our peoplehood, the plus of the allyship. We're our allies. Our allies are our people. Tonight, we lit candles, as we do every Shabbat, and as we do when we're in mourning. And I've been lighting my candles in honor of my friends who were slaughtered on Saturday. And in honor of my friends who I didn't know where they were, and we were seeking out to find out where they were. They were missing. They were missing on Saturday. They were missing on Sunday. They were missing on Monday. And we started to receive videos filmed by Hamas, sometimes on my friends' own devices, that were shared with their parents, with their children, with their siblings, and with the organizations of advocacy that they have been part of. And that is how I learned that my friends are no longer missing. So I take a breath. And I cover my eyes again as I gaze upon our Pride Shabbat candles, and I make my blessings, and I make my wishes, and I make my tefillot, and I make that in honor of them, because these Shabbat candles represent me, they represent you, they represent them, they represent the people who are no longer walking and breathing and taking the breaths like we are. Just like in Judaism and Zionism, we talk about Liot or lagoim vekechol agoim, to be a light unto nations and to be like other nations. We light candles on all our holidays to remind us of what it means to be a light. I am the light, you are the light. And we know what it means when our lights are snuffed out. And we know what it means when we must be the light, when we must carry on the legacy for our people, for those who no longer can. So when I was asked if I took a breath, I took it. And if you ever notice that I'm not breathing deeply, please remind me to take a breath, because I fight for our people, I fight for you, and I need you to fight for me. That is what it means to be Jewish. Our rabbis, like those in the room here today, are no closer to God, are no holier than any one of us. In fact, when our rabbis, our teachers, throughout our history would teach us something, it is our, and was, and continues to be our responsibility to question them, to question them first, and then decide if I agree or not. We laugh. That's why we say 3 Jews, 5 opinions. That's why we are an ism. So I take a breath. And just like the reading that Ari read about being in the in-between, in the twilight, why I love Havdalah so much, but why I also love the entrance into Shabbat so much, reminding us to take that breath, to know that we must have self-care, that we must have self-love in order to take those steps forward. And on Saturday, I first learned in the morning of my first friend who was killed. Recently, having moved to the south of Israel, because it was more beautiful there. And because it was cheaper. He never owned a gun, never owned a weapon, did Krav Maga at the gym just because, he got tired of yoga. But he bought a gun 3 months ago, thinking, all right, maybe it's good to have. And on Saturday morning, as he woke up to make his early morning coffee, he started to hear screams. And the screams and the gunfire started to pierce through the quiet air, silencing the birds chirping as the sun was rising. And he ran to grab his gun and steps outside and entered his first ever gun battle to protect his wife, to protect his 3 little children, ages 2, 3, and 5. And joined with his neighbors who ran out with whatever they could have, which included knives and pans and guns. He did not win that gun battle, nor did his family, nor did his wife, nor did his 3 children. The day went on, and I was horrified, just as many of you, listening to the news, receiving emergency messages. My WhatsApp has been going nonstop to the point that I don't know if I have something wrong with my iPhone battery or I'm just using my phone all the time, and it's constantly draining. One friend turned to 5 friends. 5 friends turned to 10 friends. 10 friends turned to 32 friends. When the beginning of this week happened, as an Israeli, as an American, but as a Jew, I said, wow, in Israel, almost every Israeli knows somebody who was killed, a loved one, or who was injured, or who was abducted. And at the beginning of the week, I said, if it's not their loved ones, their friends, their colleagues, their neighbors, then there's one degree of separation. And it really was that at the beginning of the week. Just about every Israeli I know had one degree of separation from somebody who was directly impacted. Tonight, Shabbat, it's a week after. Every Israeli I know does not have a degree of separation. Every single Israeli I know has lost family, friends, colleagues, neighbors, community members. The Aguda La-Tabit, the National LGBTQ Task Force, which I'm involved in, and IGI, Israel Gay Youth, another organization that I'm involved with, and so many other organizations. In fact, I support and advocate and advise 43 different organizations that would deal with so many different things, with Judaism, with Zionism, with Israel, with politics, with refugees, with taxes, with what happens to people after they get out of the hospital, so many different things. Each one of these organizations is now unified in helping our communities. And as I go on social media every day, we now see the posts, the death notices. This was not a war of Israel versus Palestinians. This is a war of Israel versus Hamas. Beyond that, according to Hamas, this is a war of Hamas against Jews. We have seen a rise in anti-Semitism around the world. So many of us have been speaking about it. We've been talking about it. Many of us here in America have been impacted by it. And we've been talking about it for years. I'm active on social media. I get the hate messages. In fact, today I received a phone call from the FBI notifying me. I'm just going to blow my nose. I'm going to take the moment. There, I should have done that a long time ago instead of suffering through it. So the FBI called me this morning notifying me that they are aware that I have been named once again by hate groups here in the United States, from the Goyim Defense League to the National Socialist Movement, the neo-Nazi organization, to Islamic Jihad organizations. And I said, okay, thanks for letting me know that this happened. They said, well, you've been named by them before. You were trending on Gab a month ago. I said, I'm assuming that's not a good thing. And they said, no, that's not a good thing. I said, so what are you doing about it? They said, well, we're notifying you that you need to be vigilant. Thanks, yeah. Thanks. So I'm like, okay, so I'm being vigilant. So I look around, and I get reminded to breathe, and I breathe in the space that I enter. And look, I've survived terrorist incidents. I've had near-death experiences. I have lost friends. I come from a family that has struggled but survived. So I read the room, and now I have to read the room even more. So the rise in anti-Semitism has been described with this cliche that so many of us hear. They say, oh, anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. How many of you have heard that expression, right? I'm a little tired of it, but I guess cliche statements are cliche statements because they're solid statements and they explain everything well. Well, you know what? Hamas's attack on Israel and on the Jewish people is the canary in the coal mine. And do you know what? The coal mine blew up. The canary is dead. The coal mine were these terror tunnels that they've been digging beneath our feet, and our people have fallen. But just like our people do, we rise back up, and we rise back up immediately, because that is what we know how to do. We understand victimhood. We understand marginalization. We understand victimization. We get it. But we define ourselves by resilience, by determination, by the choice to live, by focusing on the next generation. Now we have a problem. Our previous generations suffered. Many of us were raised around them. In fact, I miss them. I learned how to count on the arms of Holocaust survivors. I thought every older person had numbers on their arms, until I got a little older and understood what that really meant. Tough times create strong people. Strong people create easy times. Easy times create weak people. And weak people create tough times. We need to decide for ourselves and for our people, what type of people are we? Are we tough people? Are we weak people? And the truth is, all of us are both. We are both. We have our moments. So we must unify. There is no such thing as Jewish uniformity. There's no uniformity in the concept of Zionism either. We looked at Zionism. Herzl first went to the very elite, educated peoples and said, oh, these are going to be the Zionists, and they laughed at him and didn't care. And then he went to the poor Jewish religious communities, and they saw hope. And then he realized, I need to be inclusive. Zionism has to be inclusive. Zionism needs to include the religious, the non-religious. It needs to include the Christians. It needs to include the Jews. It needs to include the Muslims. It needs to include all people, and let them be the Jews that they want to be, or the Jews plus that they want to be, the allies that they want to be. And once again, we're in this moment where we get to choose how we identify ourselves. It's why I am so proud to have this enormous flag given to me by the Atlanta Israel Coalition and the Israeli Consulate, which allows us to put our own colors on the flag, understanding what the Magen David means, why I wear it on my shirt, why I wear the necklace that was made by my grandfather, the Holocaust survivor jeweler, who with the power of his hands survived the war, knew that if he knew how to do something, he could survive. But I wear the Magen David not just on my chest, I wear it in my heart. And we can all make the Magen David what it needs to be for us. It's a symbol of inclusion. But we represent the Magen David just as much as it represents us. Our rabbis represent us just as much as we represent them. Our elected officials represent us just as much as we represent them. And we often have to remind them of that. And that's the same in Israel. Israel is a democracy, and you know what? It is flawed, and it has been flawed, and I've been part of the protests and everything. But we have the power of demonstration, of protest, of representation, and when we feel underrepresented, we must speak up and we must speak out. And right now, we are underrepresented and we are misrepresented. As I walked out of my hotel here in Atlanta wearing what I'm wearing in front of you, someone walked by and she yelled at me, "Free Palestine." And I said, "You're right, free Palestine from Hamas." And then she said, and pardon my language, little children, but you're going to hear it eventually. And then she yelled at me, "Fucking Jew." And I thought, take a breath. I'm on my way to Pride Shabbat. I will not let anybody take my light away. I will be more of a light. I will not let anybody take my narrative away from me. I define myself. I will not let anybody take away our peoplehood. We are the people. We, the people, are the ones who can survive. Our survival, our peoplehood is resistance. Our lives are winning. It's why we chant Am Yisrael Chai. And today, as we said, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And I loved how we took a breath for each word. And I thought of the concept of breath and what that means for Adonai, who is also referred to as Ruach HaChaim, the wind of life, the breath of life. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad is often called or described as a call to Hashem, a call to our Lord, a call to God. We are God. God is within us. We are reflections of God. We breathe God. God is our peoplehood. Israel is us. please remind me to breathe, and I will remind you to breathe. And also standing tall. I've been slouching a lot, so please also remind me to stand tall. My mother is a dancer choreographer, and she tells me that all the time. Exactly. Turning despair into determination, turning grief into resilience, turning trauma into action. We focus, everybody says tikkun olam. We hear it in everybody's bar and bat and b'nei mitzvah, right? Tikkun olam, tikkun olam, tikkun olam. We have to remember that what is olam? Olam, tikkun olam, the repairing of the world. What is a world? Again, we question, what does a world mean? Oh, well, olam means this, or no, it means that. Each one of us has our own world, but there are other tikkunim. Tikkun hanefesh, repairing of the soul. What is the soul? Is it my soul? Is it your soul? Is it the soul of our people? Yes, yes, and yes. We all need to do tikkun hanefesh, repairing the soul of our people. Repairing the world. And there's tikkun haguf, repairing of the body. What is the body? Is it my own physical body? Oh, absolutely, and I'm trying to repair it. You know what? I'm not trying to repair it. There's no such thing as try. As Yoda says, there is only do or do not. Anyway, I'm not going to do my Yoda impression, but I do a really good one. It's also the body politic. That is us. We are at war. It's a fact. We as the Jewish people don't want to be at war. Israel didn't want to be at war. But we are. And I think of my friends who fought and were brutally killed, raped. And I think of my friends who did not have an opportunity to fight. So it is I who will fight for them. And I plead for you and our allies to remind our people and the plus of our allies that right now we need help. I've been angered and struggling with it by the amount of people who didn't even call or reach out here in America to say, hey, just wanted to check in on you. We understand the concepts of bikur cholim, the visiting of the sick in Judaism, or a shiva call. And when we describe, what do you do? How do you do a shiva call? How do you visit the sick? You just show up. You just listen. That's basically wokeism, right? You just listen. And so I don't know what to say to these people because I also believe that silence is complicity, and I'm really struggling right now. So I think that in addition to being strong and standing up and fighting for each other, we need to extend our arms out and say, I need help. We need help. I'm speaking to you from a deeply traumatized place. I need help. We need help. As we lead towards action together in the spirit of our people and our ancestry and all those who have joined us. Am Israel Chai. Thank you very much.
And we take a breath, because sometimes that's all we can do. So let us take our breath together. There is so much to mourn, and we need to say their names. I want to invite Victoria Reggs to the stage as the co-founding executive director of the Atlanta Jews of Color Council, who's going to lead us in some healing. Let us continue to feel our hearts expand as we pray.
Hello, everyone. Yuval was amazing, wasn't he? That's a tough act to follow right there. I heard some amazing things that really resonated with me. When he was